Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, we've got a very special guest. He is joining us all the way from the UK. He's a European champion, European junior champion, and most recently, member of the London Roar in the ISL. We've got Tom Dean. Tom, how's it going, man?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We talked to you once in the virtual mix zone after one of the ISL matches, and you were extremely eloquent, and that's actually what kind of drew me to you. You had a lot to say and a lot of really interesting insight, so I wanted to see if we could sit down and just have a bit more of a conversation. And let's start with that ISL experience. I've talked to a lot of people about the 6-week bubble in Budapest, but I'd love to get your insight, especially after having been removed for a couple weeks now. What did you think of the ISL experience?
Yeah, it was unlike anything that myself or anyone else had experienced before. Away from the pool, living in that that hotel, living in that bubble environment was a challenge in itself. We were stuck in our hotel rooms. One building, we're allowed a short period of time, to go around the island. But other than that, it was the hotel, the bus to the pool, and the pool. And that was it, really. So, limited exposure, limited social time, limited contact to the outside world. And just being in that very focused environment for 6 weeks was, a test in itself. So that was a challenge that I think everyone faced, but it kind of distilled everything down to just purely racing and just to the swimming, the swimming aspect of it. And you were surrounded by this competitive environment and watching the best in the world go head to head multiple times a week, which is unheard of in a normal year and in any other competition. So there were things that were difficult, but it was really exciting as well. And to be part of it was a great experience.
Yeah. So let's break that down a little bit. What was difficult about it for you? And especially, I'm guessing maybe those first couple weeks where there's an adjustment period, what did you find challenges with?
Yeah, me personally, our group from Bath, the Bath National Centre, the London team members, so myself, Jimmy, Freya, Holly, and Dave, Emily went out earlier. We all came out slightly later. We had disruption back at home. There was a period of isolation for the majority of us, and we had a bit of up and down coming into the competition period. So we came in a week later than everyone else. We didn't take part in that first match. We just kind of tried to get some training under our belt and then hit it as hard as we could. So those first few weeks were really tough. On the one hand, it was a degree of race, just being rusty on our race skills and not, stepping on the blocks for 10 months was a challenge in itself. But then on top of that, we'd had disruption coming into it and prior to the racing even starting. So it was really up and down. And those first few weeks were quite tough. And it was a bit of a shock to the system. And, none of us were quite ready for how hard those first few weeks were going to go. But once we settled into it, then, it really started to get exciting and the results started to come.
Yeah. So during those first couple of weeks, when things were hard, when things were challenging, what strategies were you using to kind of get through those first few weeks physically, emotionally? It's like what helped you to be able to say, all right, just keep doing it, just keep going.
Well, I think a big part of it was my coach, Dave. He was one of the coaches on the London team, and he's my coach here at Bath. And after the first 2 matches, the results weren't really going the way that I wanted them to go. They weren't going. I'm sure they weren't going the way he wanted them to go. And the same with Jimmy. We do the same events. He's my training partner, and we were having a bit of a tough time on the racing, on that 400 especially. So those first 2 matches were really quite tough. And I remember pulling Dave aside and saying, look, can we just have a sit down, grab a coffee and just kind of talk through how the next few weeks are going to work? Because on the one hand, we hadn't really had a solid block of work behind us. And I knew that going into my racing, and it's tough to step on the blocks for a 400 free against the best in the world, knowing you haven't got a block of training behind you to push you on. And I was feeling the effects of that. And I was saying, Dave, we need to work hard. We need to do this. And he was like, look, you just need to trust me on this. I know what I'm doing. I know how I need to bring you guys down to deliver the results towards the end of these 5 weeks. And we're really going to get the most out of the racing experience out here, because we might not race again for who knows how long. So it was a bit of a turning point after those first 2 matches where I really, just committed fully to what they were saying. I trust in the process that we were going to kind of bring the training down slightly, after a first bit of hard work while we're actually out in Budapest, and the results would come towards the back end, which they did.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember you won the 400 free. Was it in the final?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and was that your first win of the season?
No, I won in the semi-final as well.
Okay. All right. So you came on at the right time, certainly. And I remember kind of seeing that ascension, being like, okay, this is really interesting. But yeah, I mean, you really exploded those, like you said, that semi and the final. Take me through those last few weeks, just how, again, physically and emotionally, how you were carrying yourself, especially with that momentum you could feel coming on.
Yeah, it is very much a case of momentum, and that can go one of 2 ways, really. We're doing so much racing back to back out in the ISL. There were times where it was 2 days racing, 2 days rest, 2 days racing, 3 days rest, 2 days racing. So, an unheard of amount of back-to-back racing, which can be really positive, and if it's going well and you just carry that momentum through. But if it's not going the way you wanted it to go, which it wasn't for us at the start, it's quite tough to get yourself fired back up and get yourself, emotionally and mentally prepared to get on the blocks with, a clean slate in mind, thinking this is going to be the one where, the times are really going to come. So it was a mental challenge as much as it was a physical challenge. But yeah, like you said, once we'd, rested down slightly and sharpened up for the semi-final, I stepped on the blocks with, the words of my coach, Dave, still in my head, that this was going to be the one, because, we'd had a bit more rest and we'd sharpened up and just ready to really explode. And I remember that semi-final, I had Rapsis, a lane to my right. He was literally 1 lane over from me, and we hadn't gone head to head at this point, but he had been posting some quick times from the start, really. So I was very aware of him, and I wasn't too sure whether he was going to go out like a shot or whether, I'd be able to hold on. I wasn't entirely sure, but I was able to, just stay on his hip basically for the first 200. I got to the 200, 250 mark, and I was like, he's not making as much of a move as I thought he was. I reckon I can close him down here. And then it was very much a case of building that last 150 and having a strong finish and being able to get him at the end. And that, did so much for me, because not only was I back on my PB from the year prior when I won that European silver, but, I had the confidence that despite the really rocky training before and kind of lack of hard work, I still had these times in me, 3:37 off the back of not much good training was kind of gave me a lot of confidence. And the fact that I was able to, beat Rapsis, who at the end of the day, world number 1 and has posted some great times in the past. And yeah, going into that final, I just carried that confidence through and just hit it hard from the start, and I was able to hold him off again.
Yeah. And again, I've talked to quite a few ISL athletes, and they're saying the same thing. Most notably, I talked to Sydney Pickram, one of your captains, yesterday, and she said the exact same thing. Of you came into ISL and everyone's in a completely different place because of quarantine, because of these last 6 months, and training has been so rocky, and you're kind of like, what am I going to be able to do here? And the first couple meets, it's kind of like, oh no, but then you gotta get into it, and people start going best times and going really fast, and it's like, and it, like you said, it's just boom, 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 and you're doing it again and again. So coming out of ISL, having had a couple weeks to just kind of sit with it and reflect, what do you make of being able to go PBs or race at a really high level without that really solid training foundation like many swimmers are used to?
Well, it's interesting to say that, because as you mentioned, there are however many different nationalities coming in, each nationality with a different set of rules on, quarantining and isolation and training over the last 6 months. So some people were coming in as fit as they'd ever been. Some people were coming in with barely any training behind them. We had, 10 weeks out of the water for the first lockdown, and then you know, we had a short break for summer, and then we came back in, and just after the build phase, we had to go into isolation, and then it was straight out to the ISL off the back of that. So we were coming in very much on the lower end of spectrum of kind of level of readiness, really, and the prep we had going into it. And it was interesting to see how some people came in at the start, you know, rested, shaved, tapered, and hitting rapid, you know, times from the get-go. Notably, some people on the teams that were less likely to make it all the way to the end of the 6 weeks and make it to the final. And they're posting these really, really quick times from the get-go, but you'd watch as each competition went on and on, they wouldn't be able to beat the time they did at the very start, because you can't stay, especially on those longer events, you can't stay, you know, rested, shaved and tapered for 5 weeks and expect to just descend and descend and descend if you're hitting it hard from the get-go. Whereas our approach was more of a, okay, you know, we need to get some hard work done while we're out there, and, you know, get a bit of block of work done. And if that means the first few matches suffer slightly, then it's just a gamble we're going to have to take to pay off in the semi and the final when it really matters. So, you know, different people came in with different approaches and different, you know, backgrounds going into it, and levels of training and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, to be able to go 3:36 with no block of hard training behind me, no solid 3 week, 4 week block, you know, no aerobic block, just a build phase after the summer break, you know, gives me so much confidence this year and going forward, because I was going slower than that last year, and I had had a solid, you know, chunk of work. I'd done an altitude camp. I'd done, you know, no disruptions whatsoever. And this year I'm going a second quicker without the hard work. So it's really exciting going forward to you know, getting some hard work, which is exactly what we're doing now. You know, Jimmy and I getting our heads down in training with Dave, and, you know, I can't wait to see what the rest of the season has in store once we've got a block of hard work behind us.
Yeah. Does that change your perspective on what you may need as an athlete moving forward at all?
I think it's interesting, you know, it did show that the work is needed at the start, and you're not able to, you know, hit it hard back to back to back weeks and expect to race the best you've ever been. You know, it's just proof that you need to be slightly rested. You know, you need to be sharp, and you need to be ready to go. You can't expect a PB off the back of hard training. You know, we're not age group swimmers anymore. You know, we're senior athletes, and we need that kind of degree of rest. But it's also given me confidence in Dave's program, and you know, more faith in what he's doing, and you know, the results kind of spoke for themselves. He rested us up, you know, to the point of perfection, where that final, it was that feeling where anytime you hit the water, you're going to do a good swim. You know, I only got to do the 400 free and the 400 IM in the final, but they were both PBs. You know, I feel like if I'd had a shot at the 200 free, then I would have been able to knock another second and a half off. I'm confident in that. So yeah, it was really exciting.
And man, what a 200 free that final was too. I mean, that was an exciting swim. I would have loved to see you go head to head with those guys as well. It would have been fun. But yeah, next time.
hopefully so. No, it was quick, and you know, Duncan, I knew he was on for a good time. I knew straight away after his 200 AM, I seen what he'd been doing in training. I knew he was ready to go, and yeah, 140.2 is just a whisker off of 139, which is just on another world, isn't it? That's insane. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so again, having been home for a couple weeks, do you feel like that aspect was your biggest takeaway from the ISL, or do you have other things that were just as impactful, either, you know, with your training, inside the pool, outside the pool? You know, what were your takeaways?
I think so. I didn't do ISL season 1. This season was my first, you know, experience of this whole team environment. And like I said, you know, we're watching the best in the world go head to head on a, you know, bi-weekly basis, as opposed to a, you know, once a year basis, or sometimes once every 2 years that you see, you know, if it's in between those Olympic years. So that was just insane, and it was really exciting. And, you know, it's 2 hours of racing. You know, the light show was electric. The music was really good. There was no crowd, but I've been at competitions with crowds that have been, you know, a much worse atmosphere than that one, with all the people, with all the teams in their boxes. So it was just like unlike any swimming competition that I'd been to before. And I've had all these, you know, my family and friends back home watching it saying, this is really exciting. This is like not like anything else we've seen before. So I think my biggest takeaway was just the future of the ISL, and the future of the sport as a whole, because it's attracted so much attention, and he was able to put on a competition in such a difficult time of year with everything that's going on. And if he can do it then I think it's got a lot of potential for the future. So I was excited to be a part of it, and one of the early seasons, because I can see it going on for a whole lot longer.
Fingers crossed, man, because I think everyone who's a fan of swimming doesn't want the ISL to go away. We want that to stay for good. And that's exciting. And so let's, I'd like to get into some of those, once a year type competitions, because you're only 20, right? And so, I mean, you just came on to the senior scene, as you said, a little recently, and I'd like to start with 2019 World Championships. Those are your first world championship, like first senior world championships. With Team GB. I mean, as someone, as a 19-year-old kid, what was that experience like, especially being a part of that 800 or that 4x2 relay? There was the 2-time defending champs.
Yeah, no, I mean, GB is synonymous with a strong 4x2 team. That's, we've had great success in the past with it, and I'm stepping on the team that's won an Olympic silver medal. They've been world champions, and I'm lucky enough to be part of that team a year on from winning at Europeans, and that being my first senior meet, but the world champs being my first senior world level meet. So it was really exciting to be part of that relay. It didn't quite go how we wanted it to go for a number of factors. And we came fifth, and we were, I think it was something insane, like 0.2 of a second off of silver. So really nothing in it. But I mean, there were a few things that didn't go quite to plan, and we finished, and we were speaking to the coaches, and they said that is the best possible thing. That is the best possible result you guys could have had in the year before the Olympics, is coming fifth and being a Wisgroffer medal on that 4x2, because it gave us so much drive for the following year. And myself being the youngest member, I did I think I was a 1:46.1 split on the relay, so nothing amazing, and I knew I could have gone quicker, but it did give us a lot of drive for the following year as a whole team to really push on. And I'm so confident in what we're going to be able to do this summer as a 4x2 team. Myself personally, I've already gone a PB last year in the only long course meet we did, and that was off the back of flying straight in from Australia 3 days before and going then flying straight to Edinburgh. But the block of training that Jimmy and I had done last year, Jimmy obviously only joined my squad last year. The block of training that we did, we both posted 1:46s, unrested, unshaved, and untapered at the Edinburgh International last year off the back of flying straight in from Australia. So we were both on our best times, essentially, with not very good prep. So I'm very confident that we both could have gone really, really quickly at trials. Obviously, Duncan is on the best form of his life. He's posting PBs. He, a 1:44.9 swimmer from World Champs, he would have been on fire as well. And then it's just that fourth spot, really. Whoever fills it up, that's where the medal is going to be dictated by. But no, it's really exciting for this summer, and being able to step up and be part of it on a world level in 2019 was, an honor in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a couple of the Australian guys about it. I talked to Jimmy, to James Guy about it. I mean, it's one of the craziest races I think I've ever seen. Yeah, because you had 5 guys flipping at the 750 and all in medal contention.
Yep.
And that's really cool. I mean, if just push off if you don't want to answer this, but what do you guys feel like you didn't go quite to plan, as you said earlier?
I can't speak for the other boys in terms of their race plan and how they found the times. I mean, Callum Jarvis went one of his fastest relay splits ever, 1:45.5. Duncan leading off in a 1:44.9 was, absolutely amazing. I don't think Jimmy was as happy with his time as he could have been. He's a 1:43 relay swimmer at the end of the day, and a 1:45.5 or 1:45.6 wasn't, exactly where I wanted to be. But me personally, I let the whole energy the whole atmosphere slightly get the better of me at my first World Championships. And, I did go off too hard. My relay takeover wasn't quite where it should have been. I kind of just got a little bit excited and a little bit too racy on that first 100. And, that's a learning experience that I can take away and carry forward. So I think it was a combination of factors, but like I said, it's just almost played into our hand and given us so much more drive for the relay at the Olympics, which obviously in the summer of 2020, but now 2021 is going to be really exciting, I think.
Agreed. I mean, I think that's, for me personally, it's going to be one of the most highly anticipated races, at least on the men's side, because like you said, I don't think any of those teams are really going away.
No, absolutely.
But so what's the relay vibe culture like in GB right now, just in terms of you guys? Do you guys, obviously you train, James Guy's your training partner, but do you guys, do you text about these kinds of things every once in a while? Do you get to train with each other? It's like, I mean, in the US, it's a different, like you don't really, the relays aren't made up until the trials meet where they qualify and then they have training camp, and that's pretty much the only time. But, it's like somewhere like Brazil, they'll have relay training camps, or Australia, I think they do a similar thing. So it's like, do you guys have anything like that? Or, you don't know for sure, but you kind of have an idea of who's going to be on those relays. So is there a little more building of the camaraderie as the year goes on?
Yeah, we do have things similar to that. And as you said, you kind of have a rough idea of who's going to be eyeing up those relay spots. Of the World Champs teams, 3 out of the 4 of us are based here in Bath, where I train. Callum is in the other squad at Bath, and then James and I are training partners in Dave's squad at Bath. So I'm very close to 3 of us are very close in Bath, and we see each other every day. And then Duncan up in Stirling in Scotland, while we don't see him as much, we still have relay camps, which we do take part in, and we do, and we've got altitude camps, and we've got, a number of different British swimming events that happen that we're able to, train together at, which is always really exciting. And even, the 5-6 weeks out in ISL, getting in the lanes next to him and doing a few sessions where we're doing the same kind of thing. Yeah, we're all really close, and because we've got a kind of a rough idea of who's going to be in that top 4, if not that top 6, then we're all able to kind of have that bond and train together a little bit. And I'm fortunate in that I'm able to be in the same lane, if not the lane next to Jimmy, every day, and we're able to push each other. And it's exciting having that common goal in mind, especially when the sets get tough, which they have been in the last few weeks.
Yeah. So what is a normal set for you guys? I mean, do you have, is it like Tuesdays you go really hard, or Wednesdays you'll go off the blocks, stuff like that? Do you kind of know what you're doing on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, we've got a pretty good idea. Our coach works in blocks. We might be doing an aerobic block or doing more of an anaerobic block, and it might be a 3-week block of work and then a slightly deload week. So it varies through the season. We've been given our cycles from now and the next 20 weeks until British Champs. We know exactly what that's all going to look like. But yeah, on a normal week, we know that Monday morning we're going to have a big aerobic set. This afternoon we were doing speed work. Tomorrow morning we're going to be doing a threshold session. So the weeks kind of follow a similar pattern when we're in a certain block. But yeah, I mean, since we've got back from ISL, we've been hitting it pretty hard. There was no, time to catch your breath. It was a few days travel, and then we're straight back into it. And this is the block of work that I was talking about. We missed out before ISL. This is, we're making up for it. But it's been so exciting to hit the ground running off the back of such good results out in Budapest, and knowing that we've got that fitness behind us despite not having that work. So we're starting from an even higher level than we were this time last year. And yeah, some of the sets Jimmy and I have been doing, I'm really excited about the year ahead, essentially.
Has there been a set in the last few weeks that stood out to you so far, and one that you did really well on, or you guys, really, really pushed it and was like, wow, not bad?
Yeah, we had a tough one last Friday. Actually, we had a really tough one last Friday. So it was a descent to VO2 set, essentially in hundreds and blocks of 6. And so we went from aerobic to threshold to VO2, the set volume increased over the 4 sets. So it was really, really tough one. But, the times that Jimmy and I were doing, they were like 200 race pace or quicker. We're holding for hundreds. And it's like, okay, we've never done times like this before in training. Even looking back to this time last year, we were going 1, 2, 3 seconds slower on sets like this with the heart rates that are being reflected. Mm-hmm. So, we really kind of hit it hard last week on that Friday night. And I know that this Friday is going to be something along those lines. It's a tough block, but it's exciting, the work that me and him are putting in the bank.
Yeah, that is exciting, and hopefully those results show. So you mentioned British champs are in 20 weeks. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. About 20 weeks, yeah.
Okay, so that puts them in April?
I think mid to late April, off the top of my head.
Do you have a pretty set event lineup for that meet as of now?
I've got a rough idea. I think the 200 free and 400 free are the real standout events for me personally. My focus has shifted slightly off the IM and more towards the freestyle. So the only individual swim I got at the World Champs in 2019 was the IM, but since then the freestyle's come more into the spotlight with that short course 400 free looking quite promising. So hopefully being able to transfer that into long course, and obviously the 200 free being a staple for myself personally, but for the relay as well. So those two are pretty solid. I would like to get some IM swims in as well, but it's very much a case of sitting down with my coach, seeing what the 6-7 day schedule looks like and planning it around that. But yeah, those freestyles are for sure.
Gotcha. And so how do you balance that free IM in training for you?
So, I mean, I grew up as an IM swimmer essentially all through my age group career. My home program is very much IM based for me personally. We do a lot of IM work, and I still do quite a lot of IM work when we're doing aerobic sessions, or, if we're doing a descent threshold session or whatever it might be. I think it's really, really important. And I've still, got a few decent IM swims in me. The 402 at the ISL wasn't too shabby, and it was a nice PB for me. So, I think my IM's still quite decent, even though it's not my main focus. Mm-hmm. If we're doing a race pace session, I'm going to do it on freestyle essentially, and that's how it goes. If we're doing a session where we need to get down and starting to replicate what we're going to be doing in competition, then I'm going to be doing it on freestyle. So that's moved more into the spotlight for me. Even though the relay's always been in the back of my mind, that 4x2, now an individual spot is something I'm starting to eye up as well. So it's shifted slightly, but there's still, a degree of both in my training.
Do you prefer just training wise, not even, focusing on the races, but do you prefer one kind of training over the other?
So my coach loves threshold work, absolutely loves it. He's even known in British swimming for loving a bit of threshold work. So he's a big fan of that. And I think it, really reaps some benefits. I think it gets us really, really fit. But me personally, I just like doing race pace work. If we do a session that descends down and we finish with some race pace 50s or race pace 100s at the end of it, I think that's really exciting. And obviously that comes as you get closer to competition. But yeah, that's definitely my favorite type of training.
Nice. And so again, like we said, World Champs in 2019 was your first senior international meet. Well, sorry, that's not true. It was your first senior world champs. You'd been to Euro Juniors, you'd been to European Championships. When you got there in 2019, did you feel prepared for that stage based on, the European meets you'd been to before?
I think the World Championships is a whole level above Europeans. It's a bigger stage. It's against, you've obviously got the Americans and the Aussies, and a lot of the Asian countries, so China and Japan taking part. So it's a whole level above, and everything's just bigger and better and more exciting, and more, slightly more foreign. When I'm racing in Glasgow for Europeans, I've raced in Glasgow all my age group career. From a very young age, and there's a degree of familiarity. But when you're going to Gwangju in South Korea, the other side of the globe from anywhere you've been before to race, it is completely different. And I'm fortunate in that my coach has got years of experience taking swimmers to these high level competitions. He's been on every major GB team since 01, since World Champs in 01. So, he was able to basically guide me through the whole process and say, when you walk out to the arena, it's going to be, take your breath away slightly when you see that whole setup, and it's going to be unlike any competition you've been to before. So I went in expecting that, knowing that it was going to be bigger and better than anything I'd faced, and having that in the back of your mind, and having a coach who's so confident and so, calm and collected in that arena environment, reflected into my emotions, and I was able to, calm myself down and just go at it with a level head and an action plan. And I felt, quite prepared going into it, which was quite good.
That does seem quite good. To date, do you have a favorite meet that you have been to thus far?
Favorite meet? Probably as a senior athlete, I loved doing the Mare Nostrums in 2019. They were really exciting because I'd never done back-to-back competitions like that, and a series essentially. So it was Monaco, Cannes, Barcelona were the three we did back-to-back, and that was really fun. 2 days and 2 days off, and then 2 days on, or however it went. So that was quite exciting. But I think as a single competition prior to that, I know it's going back to my junior years, but Bahamas in 2017. Just because of the location and racing outdoors for the first time, that's always, stuck in my mind.
Tell me about that meet. What was so cool about it?
So I'd just come off the back of European Juniors 2017, which was my first, international competition as a junior swimmer. And I'd won that, which was really exciting. And this was the last big meet of the year, the last big meet of the season, one more push, and I got to go out to the Bahamas and, stay in this amazing hotel with the whole team, and, great food and great environment, and get to race outdoors. It was just really, really exciting. And I was able to get the win there on the 200 IM, and it was just a great way to round off the season. And they had an opening ceremony, a closing ceremony, which was good fun. So, that's still, even though it wasn't the biggest competition, I've been to, it's still, got a pretty special place in my racing career.
Yeah. What meet was that?
That was Commonwealth Youth Games.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems pretty cool. Yeah. Bahamas seems like not a bad place to race.
Yeah. There's worse places to race.
That's really nice. And so you raced in the British University Championships as well. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so, I mean, as Americans, I'm used to the NCAA, collegiate swimming's a big thing here. I'm used to, I know what that energy is like. How would you describe like the Bucks environment, especially now that you've been a part of this ISL team as well?
I think Bucks here in the UK and the NCAAs are worlds apart, to be honest with you. The NCAAs is essentially one of the highest level competitions in the world because of the caliber of swimmer that you have at collegiate level swimming. Here in the UK, we've got a slightly different system. The majority of swimmers at national centres, so Bath, Loughborough, and slightly separately Stirling, the majority of them don't study at university, and therefore don't race at the Bucks competitions twice a year. So there are a handful of us that do. I was doing a mechanical engineering degree, so I was able to represent Bath University at the Bucks competition. But the majority of athletes at national centres don't. But you still get, Max Litchfield, I got to race him at Bucks. Duncan, I got to race him at Bucks. So there are still a few high-level athletes. James Wilby, who swim at Bucks because they study at the same time as doing their training, and they're there. But it's a very different environment to an NCAA's, where essentially almost all national level, high-level athletes are collegiate level swimmers, and will be performing at the NCAAs.
Tell me about that environment, though. I mean, going into a Bucks meet, do you shave, taper? Are you, is it a big team thing? What makes it an exciting meet for you?
We tend not to shave and taper. The thing is, at the universities here in the UK, the university squad and the national centre squad at Bath and Loughborough are very separate. We don't train with the university squad. They're, completely separate. I train with the national centre squad. So there are only two of us, I think, from the national centre three of us at the national centre who took part in the Bucks competition, because only three of us studied. So we joined in with the whole university squad, who made up the majority of the Bath Bucks team. as kind of like an outsider just coming in and just treating it like any open meet. So it's not a huge one. There's not, you know, a massive atmosphere around it. It's just kind of go up there, do a bit of racing like you would any other kind of small open meet during the short course season, and then again during the long course season. So it's, you know, completely nothing like an ISL, and I don't think much like an NCAA's either, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious because I had seen results from the Bucks meets, but I didn't really know too much about it. That is pretty interesting. So what do you think about balancing, you know, the training at a national center with getting an engineering degree?
Yeah, it's quite tough. It's not like America. So obviously, you're a student athlete out in America. The key word being student and athlete, those two things, you know, having a place and fitting around each other. Here in the UK, it's very much you're an athlete, and then completely separately, you're a student. So there's no sense of, you know, one working with the other, which is why I found doing a mechanical engineering degree during my first year here at Bath, so leading into that World Champs in 2019, really quite challenging. And both the studying and the training were compromised because of one another. So it was quite a challenge doing that and trying to balance everything, especially when, you know, no one from the university understands the swimming at the national centre, and the swimming at the national centre has no affiliation with the university in the slightest. So training times and lecture times are constantly clashing. So it was quite tough that first year, and I think I didn't get all the training in that I should have done, and it did suffer slightly, which is why during Olympic year last year I put the studies on hold for 1 year to focus solely on the training, which allowed me to go away to 2 altitude camps and an Australia camp, and, you know, attend every single session and, you know, complete it to its fullest. And the results started to, you know, show that extra commitment. You know, I started doing PBs. I did that 400 free short at Europeans. I did that 146 off the back of Australia before lockdown started. So, you know, it did start to pay off. And that's what I'm doing again this year. I'm taking a break from studies because it's Olympic year, and, you know, this is the most important year in the 4-year cycle. So it's tough. It is challenging trying to do both. And this year I've prioritized the swimming.
Makes sense. I just spoke with Arno Kaminga, the Dutch breaststroker, who shared similar sentiments. You know, he had said, it's really hard to do both in the Netherlands because they're not streamlined at all, right? It's completely separate, being a student and being an athlete. And you can't really do both because they're not really supportive of each other. So that's, again, it's a different way of doing things, and that's interesting because I didn't know that. I'm used to the US way, and I didn't realize there was like that at other places. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my sister is doing a medicine degree at Duke on a swimming scholarship, and she's able to fit both in despite how demanding a medicine degree is. So yeah, hearing her experiences and hearing my experiences, yeah, they're completely different.
Yeah. Well, it's, again, very interesting. So to wrap things up, it's been great talking with you. Moving into these next couple weeks, couple months, obviously you've got British trials on the horizon, but what are you looking forward to? Just, you know, December, January, February, do you have any competitions on the schedule?
So we have got competitions on the schedule. Everything's still slightly up in the air. There's even supposed to be a competition in Dublin in Ireland next weekend, but I think that's kind of, you know, still might not happen. So I'm not too sure about 2020. I think we can draw a line under that in terms of competition. I was fortunate to get, you know, a whole bunch of racing done over the 5 weeks in Budapest. I was really, really lucky. I'm still very grateful that competition was put on and we were able to attend it. But yeah, looking forward between now and British Champs in April. I think we've got a few. That Edinburgh International Meet, that was the final one before lockdown started last year. I think that might be happening. I've got a feeling there's one in Belgium. I think Flanders might be happening, but I'm not too sure. It's still quite up in the air. Essentially, we just have been given our program and we're saying, you know, this is the number of blocks of work that we need to get in. We need to tick off 100% compliance for every single week. And it's that degree of consistency that are going to cause the results to come. You know, I've had 2 great weeks already coming off the back of Budapest. And as I said, doing times that neither I nor Dave nor Jimmy were expecting to be posting this early on. So it's very exciting. And if we can carry that momentum forward through the next, I mean, what is it now? It's not even 20 weeks. It might be 17 weeks. And then when you kind of start looking into taper, it's even less. So it's very much focusing on the training between now and then we'll start doing some sharpening up and some race work. But I think there might be the odd competition dotted around before then.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much everyone's scenario right
Yeah,
now. There might be some competitions, but
it's training basically from here on out.
Yeah. Well, Tom, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me for a little bit. Any parting thoughts before we sign off?
Nothing really. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm looking forward to hearing it back.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.